Lies and how to hold them accountable. And that could be small lies, random political lies, or the biggest of them all, from courtrooms to our civic culture. Take George Santos. He has now paid mightily for his lies. He was expelled from the House, which is actually quite rare. He was sort of subjected to a national humiliation if he's capable of feeling something. And there was a line drawn. Now, I've discussed with you on this very program why the way Republicans drew that line was limited. It didn't get to the big lies, like Trump's big lie that fed the insurrection. We'll get to that. But right now, we'll start with what's happened to Santos since he was booted. He has tried to sell videos of himself to people who will pay money, which is a service you can use online. There's one called Cameo. It means that he'll say just about anything for a price. And for someone who got famous and then infamous for lying, you could see the fit here. Write a message and he'll read it. And he really will read all kinds of stuff, which has comic Jimmy Kimmel trolling him over it.
I didn't say they were from me. I just wrote them and sent them to find out, will Santos say it? Okay, so are you ready to play? All right, so this is the request. The request was, George, please congratulate my friend Gary Fortuna for winning the Clearwater, Florida beef eating contest. Will Santos say it? Let's find out.
Hey, Gary Fortuna. George Santos here. I just wanted to stop by to congratulate you for winning the Clearwater, Florida beef eating contest. Eating 6 pounds of loose ground beef in under 30 minutes is a all-time new record. Bye.
Pretty good. 5 stars.
That's different than my hard copy. Oh, Santos is proving he will say just about anything. I'm just looking at my notes here. He may be incapable of shame, but I can tell you he's also in court today, facing 23 counts on the fraud, money laundering, and other crimes. He's in plea deal talks, while Rudy Giuliani is facing legal heat for pushing lies. He was in court today for the defamation trial. Now, the judge has ruled Giuliani defamed 2 election workers by falsely claiming they changed their votes in Georgia. The jury will decide the amount of damages he owes them. Giuliani is still back at it, though. Here he was outside the courtroom doubling down.
Whatever happened to them, it's unfortunate if other people overreacted, but everything I said about them is true.
Do you regret what you did to Rudy?
Of course I don't regret it. I told the truth.
This morning in court, the judge said that comment itself might be another round of defamation. And again, Giuliani could be paying millions for each of these, so he's definitely taking a risk. Those are very real consequences for election lies, and that's before you even get to his criminal prosecution in Georgia. Trump, of course, facing 91 counts for a whole range of things, including business fraud allegations, lies, and other misconduct. And then there are these media companies. Fox, which has already paid out a ton, and Newsmax, which is positioned to Fox's right, are still dealing with other pending cases from the voting companies who say they were defamed. And then you have the elector fraud in multiple states which have been charged where, again, separate from whatever happens to Donald Trump himself, some of his fans who thought they could get away with what they thought were little lies are learning there is accountability. I want to bring in someone who knows about all of this. David Plouffe is who President Obama tapped as a chief strategist, a campaign manager. You've won some campaigns. And David, we thought of you tonight because there's nothing new about dissembling, spin, and some types of exaggeration or lies in American politics. Not saying it's all good or okay, but I think you would tell me if you disagree. I think you'd agree that throughout our history there's been some of that without getting prosecutors involved, right? Now we seem to have, with MAGA, a group of people who feel like the way they beat the system is to discard any pretense of trying to be truthful about anything and exhaust the fact checkers, overwhelm our senses, exhaust the body politic, and, as we've reported, delay out these accountability measures so maybe someday, eventually, some of them get in trouble. Well, that part of the strategy seems to be hitting a real wall lately, as I just showed. But what do you think about this, and where is the right line between robust public debate, which you got to have? People can criticize your old boss Obama all they want, and if they sometimes are less than 100% accurate, they don't go to jail. I don't think they should. Versus the type of defamation, the type of harassment of those poll workers, which had consequences, the type of lies that led to sedition, which is way over the line. How do you see it?
Well, all right, I think there's a lot of things that contribute to this. The main thing I think is, Santos, Giuliani, certainly Trump, they have this perverse, polluted fishbowl they all live in, Fox and Newsmax and Sinclair. And you can get away with anything there, say anything, demonize anything. And then when you basically have to leave that border of insanity into the real world, that's when it gets really complicated. And that's the real concern, I think, about the next election is if Trump were to win, he's been crystal clear about his aims to destroy things like the judiciary. So if you lose that backstop, we kind of lose it all. But I think that's what's going on here is there's no pushback where people on the right, particularly the MAGA right, are spending 99% of their time. They can say anything, get away with anything. And then they cross over into reality and they pay consequences. And I think the question is with the electorate, my sense is the way to make them pay for the lies, particularly Trump, is to say, if the chief liar gets back into office, that's what we're going to see all day long. And I think, there's sadly probably 40% of the country that would be okay with that. But the people that will decide this election are not.
Yeah. You mentioned sort of when reality catches up with what you call that polluted landscape. And it's funny because we talk about lawyers, and I think since Trump came on the scene, we've had law as a much bigger theme, as you know, in coverage. And that's not a great thing for democracy. It might just be a necessary thing. But, I used to tell my clients, if you're dealing with most of normal life, you don't want lawyers involved. In other words, if you're in a relationship or a family dynamic or how to raise your kid, once the lawyers or the government comes in, that means things have really broken down. In business, sometimes you have a fight and then you work it out. If you end up suing each other for years over a business deal, no one's really coming out of that all that happy. And so I wonder about how much we've had to resort to that because Jenna Ellis, who was a Trump lawyer, who was on this program just the way you are right now. That might be the extent of the comparison, David. I don't know what else y'all have in common, but, we tried to reason with her, and she got in trouble for her public lies and her actions, and then she, of course, finally pled to a crime. So let's show that and get your view of how she went from what you called that polluted zone to saying, oh, my God, I woke up. Take a look.
If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse.
What do you see there in someone who was in presidential campaign life on the other side from you?
Well, again, I think she was operating in this made-up world, almost her own political Westworld. And then when the facts were presented to her and she realized the problem she could get into, she basically repented.